Yahweh, our God and Creator, we offer thanksgiving, praise, and worship. Yeshua, we thank you that you establish a time of protection, holy and divine grace in this moment to bring all things into proper order. We thank you that you purify and cleanse this time, free it from any technical difficulties that we experienced prior to this moment, and we trust and know that your Spirit will bring all things into order. We breathe the Abun, the life-giving breath of your Spirit within us. So we trust in you above the thoughts of our minds, or the things we witness of this earth, or anything of a spiritual nature that does not reflect the nature of your attributes. We are one with your Spirit, trusting in you, embracing you. We breathe as one, breathing deep. Whoops. And then I want to open first in thanksgiving and recognition for each of you that have been in prayer for both Pamela and myself and for our whole family as my mom prepares to be born into new life, into God's presence. And I am truly grateful for everybody and their wonderful words of prayer and their wonderful thoughts and intentions. And I have to say openly that it has been a beautiful experience to sit and share with my son James, to talk with him and remind him of the spiritual nature of the things that we go through and traverse. I mean, even as this time now approaches for Grandmama to be born into new life and all the beautiful things that will come about in her freedom from the suffering that she's walked for now about 8 years with Alzheimer's, it's really important to remember that life is perpetual in God's grace. Life is perfect and pure within God's presence. And that we are those that entered into this human journey, restoration of the spiritual ground. And this is something that I've witnessed throughout my life that all of us had forgotten. And when God blessed me with the understandings that were given through the Covenant and Love, the book, and again, that poured through in a 7-day period. So I can't take any credit for this. 217 pages of that 270 some odd pages just poured out in a 7-day period. From the time I was given permission within my spirit, it was now you will begin. And I sat down and began to type, and 7 days later there was the Covenant and Love. And again, I have to remind individuals that I work with through life, especially many of the spiritual teachers that I work with, that this is all about the spiritual realm. We are blessed in this human existence, but we came into this place to bring restoration to the spiritual things that we would come upon. And that takes many forms. So as we see people approaching the end of their human existence, it is not an ending. It is a returning, a reemergence, a returning into God's presence without the veil of humanity to limit it, without the veil of spiritual influences to limit it. And as a person's birth into new life, that's why I call it that, and just as when my son Christopher left 2 years ago, almost this time, we need to look within our own hearts to see what is it stirring within us and what is God revealing of a spiritual nature that does not align with the nature of his spirit, whether it's the spirit of death, the fear of death, the anxieties in care and provision that go beyond this. And we need to release these things of a spiritual nature. And as I've shared with you in the past, and for those of you that have gone to the Grace Healing Ministries YouTube channel and listened to the story about Andy and his experience while he was in jail and on an overdose, how God, in releasing these 67 different spiritual entities, moved from a point where his body was dying and needing a blood transfusion, and a stomach pumping was impossible because at that point it was almost 4 hours after the consumption of the overdose. So you have to remember that this is spiritual in nature. It is all spiritual in nature. And I want to share with you an understanding or a story that I encountered when I was blessed to pray over somebody. An individual I had been praying for years suggested that her parents call me as they were driving a, quote, friend in need to the hospital for surgery. Now, this couple that called, this woman's parents, was an elder couple. They were in their 70s, late 70s. And this woman kind of like came out of nowhere from a church experience. You know, they met her through church, and there was a lot going on within this woman's life, and there was deep distress physically within her body, and she was always dealing with some ailment or malady of some kind in the short period of time that they knew her. However, this woman approached this elder couple and asked if they could transport her to the hospital for a surgery that she was supposed to undergo, and then if there was any chance that she might be able to help her in her convalescence, her recovery, that if she might be able to spend time with them. And these beautiful, Christian, loving people meeting this woman in church said, of course, we'd be happy to do that, and yes, we'll take you into our home. So in that, the person I had been praying with for years said to her parents, you need to call Larry and just engage in prayer, and maybe God will bless this woman in some way, and maybe you'll find some healing in it. So this couple calls to me with this woman in the car as they're driving to the hospital for this, I won't get into the specifics, but it was a pretty intense surgery. It involved a lot of testing previously. It showed serious issues going on within an organ that had to be removed. And they were driving to this place, and she was going to undergo this surgery. And this woman's intention was to end up in this elder's home and be cared for. So as I began to pray, God started revealing things in the prayer. And in the midst of the prayer, I began to realize that the prayer was for the elder couple. And this woman was physically healed in the car at that moment, but did not know it yet. And as I'm praying, what's unfolding is God was revealing to me the spirit of manipulation, the spirit of oppression, the spirit of deception, the spirit of manipulation again, deception over and over again. And these things were being peeled away, peeled away, peeled away. As this prayer unfolded, the couple, as they're driving along, just felt the presence of God enfold them, bless them, love them, and they just felt absolutely filled, overflowing with God's love. The woman in the back seat remained quiet the whole time. When they got to the hospital, a short while later, the elder couple called me, ecstatic and overwhelmed in God's grace, saying that the woman had been healed, and when they started doing the preliminary tests to prepare her for the surgery, they found that there was nothing wrong in her body any longer. She was totally healed. But you need to pay attention to this part. In the instant she found out that she had been healed, she became extremely irate, hostile, yelling, screaming, saying how much she hated that guy on the phone. What the heck did he do to me? Why did you do that? Why did you call that guy? How dare you do this to me? So remember, let's look back at this from a spiritual aspect. This woman had a desire to entrench herself within this elder couple's home and start a process of deception through many issues that were to come after this issue. When this was completed, What had happened was she was again physically healed, no longer needed surgery. There was no need for convalescence. In that, she just developed a tremendous hatred towards the individual that she prayed with over the phone and was infuriated that she found her healing. Now, if we eliminate the human component in this, let's take the humanness of Larry out of it. Let's take the humanness of the couple driving in hopeful expectation to help through the spirit of sympathy. Let's take the humanness of the woman that was in the back seat out of the equation. What was transpiring here was an opportunity to give freedom to many of the captives within. The captives within the elder couple that were held by ignorance. They did not know that they were functioning in a spirit of sympathy. They did not know that they were moved out of a state of compassion and governed to a spirit of oppression and abuse, because they thought they were functioning in compassion and they were moving through sympathy, and they never stopped to pray to see if they were supposed to engage in this path. The woman in the back seat. Manipulation, deception, misleading, many things of a spiritual nature within her. This is what this time was about. This was about bringing freedom to the captives within this setting, both those that were in this setting through blindness and those that were in this setting through willfulness. This is a very specific and real occurrence that happened, and this couple was able to return this woman back to the town that they had come from, which they had driven, I guess, a few hours to get to the hospital. And upon their return, this woman was still irate and furious. So again, when I had a chance to kind of like prayerfully debrief with them, we prayed for this woman to be freed from the spirits of anger, the spirits of hatred. The different grounds that she was willing to embrace when she found her little ruse, her game, was not going to be carried off in the way that she had hoped. And the thing you must remember in this is that when you engage in any aspect of your lives, you must recognize the reality of the unceasing, constant nature of prayer. And if you have question about something, engage with another person in the fullness of agreement before God's love. Seek prayer. It turned out that this was just a beautiful drive, after all, for this elder couple, and an opportunity for that woman in the back seat to receive a gift of grace. However, she did choose to squander that and not receive it. She did return to that place of residence, not with the elder couple, but back to her own home. And she may have stewed in that for days, who knows. But we prayed as a couple and a group, the couple, myself, prayed for her to be freed from the spiritual ground that she obviously chose, which was not to receive the fullness of God's healing, and it was to remain in anger and aggression toward what she had experienced instead of receiving it to magnify God's glory. It was a short time after that that the woman actually moved to another area and possibly another church or whatever to see if she could start her new ruse or process to unfold on somebody else. So again, the humans removed from this process. The four of us removed. The reality was that many spirits within that moment were released into the fullness love. The minimum of 21 different spirits restored in the presence of God, freed from the tendrils that we held upon them. and the blessed restoration of those that were lost to their awareness of God. This is what we are walking upon this earth, and this is what Yeshua said: when you release anything of a spirit nature or of a demonic nature, you must welcome the presence of God within, or many of like kind will return. When he was speaking to these things of a spiritual nature, it was important to understand that he was teaching things to us on a spiritual ground. Not just things of an earthly nature, but spiritual in nature. And it is important for us to remember and not lose sight of the fact that that is specifically why we came here, was to participate with Yeshua, to set the captives free, to release any tendrils we might form upon the lies or deceptions of others, the wrongs of others. So if we encounter anything that somebody's doing, quote unquote, to us or against another, we need to submit ourselves before God and engage in the prayerful awareness of God's presence. Then, in that prayer, we will begin to recognize things that will rise, that present in a way that do not reflect God. That's the key. The reality is, when you embrace God's love, whether it's in a union with a couple, or whether it's in a union with a friendship, or if you direct love towards a corporate body of people that you are blessed to serve and love, whether it's in a corporate job or a fraternal organization or a corporate calling of the political ground that we see upon this earth, if you engage in the fullness of God's love, it will do one thing. God's love will enter in, and it will reveal all things that are not reflecting the nature of God. That is the gift of revelation that comes by grace when one chooses the grace of recognizing God within a setting. God's presence will always reveal that which is not of God, so that we can release it from within us and release any tendrils or ties we have formed upon it to hold it bound within this heaven. As long as we give it ground here, we hold it bound here. So even as my mom is in the stages today of birth into new life, my one role with her today was to sit in prayer over her as I sat with a number of my other sisters, and just each time that her breathing would come up tight or whatever, or she couldn't, I mean, she's totally unresponsive, but there were times where spiritual things were unfolding from within her body vessel. So I was just led to reach to her as my other sisters were talking. I just placed my hand on the back of her neck and placed my hand on the front of her chest and just prayed and released. So that any residual spiritual components that reside within this vessel of what was my mom might be returned into the fullness of God's grace. It was a beautiful visit with my sisters and a blessed opportunity to pray over my mom's body. So remember, when you are traversing situations of change or situations of difficulty, please center your hearts first upon God, not what you want to hang on to, not that you want to hang on to the memories of the situation, not that you want to hang on to the possible result of the situation, but honestly, truthfully engage every aspect of your being to recognize God first and breathe. And as you breathe, allow yourself that moment of 3 gentle breaths. Yahweh on the breath in. Exhale, trusting and knowing that God's love is present within you. Breathing deep. Yeshua on the breath in. He reveals all things that are not of God. You relinquish them over to Yeshua. Done and complete. Freed from any tendrils or ties that you may have formed by any sense of hurt or wrongfulness or victimization or sadness or anger or unforgiveness. You release all these things. Then you breathe once again the Amun. God's Spirit to overtake every aspect of your being so that you are positioned to be that which God's Spirit reflects, which is His nature, her holy wisdom in that moment. Therefore, anything remaining of a spiritual nature will become that which God intends it to be, not how you might hold it close to you. I do hope this night blessed you with some deeper understandings. Please remember that every single thing you witness unfolding that is not of a blessed nature, even this couple's journey to the hospital, which took them away from the responsibilities they held upon their farm and the things that they faced, took them off and diverted them into a different direction where they thought they were an opportunity of service and they were merely being set up on a spiritual ground so that this woman could overtake their house, overtake their focus, and press them into a place of servitude. That was the other spirit that was revealed. That's right, indentured servitude. So please, every situation you encounter, allow your eyes to be opened more broad. Allow the aperture of your eyes to extend to a greater distance, and let God's Spirit reveal to you the nature of His loving presence, her perfect wisdom, her holy discernment, and the awesome wonder of our God and Creator. And in this moment, we surrender now into the presence of our loving God and breathe deep. Yalvilania kukamu turkamu nye kunyelam wo ye nishuen rakomyoko folie brahamodoko tailondrevismieshnakum Wanyulakum yusulie turo Lavla kamono contodrio sosisiri and the kaiminikeli utro you. Yahweh, we stand in awe, thanksgiving, praise, and worship to know that your Spirit greets us in each and every breath we receive. We thank you that from this moment forward you heighten our awareness upon the nature of your presence. The nature of your presence, the things you wish restored into your light, the holy recognition of your divine grace and peace, as we trust in you and the holy nature of your being, as we are freed from anything that does not align with your nature. Yeshua, we thank you that you cover any gap that forms within us, that if we walk within 1% of trust, that you cover the 99%, that if we embrace 15%, 80%, 90% on a good day, we offer thanksgiving that you cover the remaining 20, 10, 5, 6%, that it is your Spirit by grace that reaches through this gap that we may form within our lack of understanding, that we may form within our willfulness. We pray in thanksgiving to know that by grace you are willing to receive into your loving embrace all things that we are willing to relinquish our hold upon. We trust you and know that you hold the greatest authority within all creation, and we submit ourselves fully unto you for this week to come. In this we praise you through your most blessed and holy name. Yahweh Elohim, Yeshua, Abun Solhondra Habun Derivis Nachwandra Bashut Lebereasach. Amen. And I pray that each of you find a blessed and holy rest in this night, that you would be blessed with a sevenfold sleep, that for each and every moment you touch the depth of rest, that you would encounter God's Spirit and He would magnify the value of that time, times 7, to bring restoration and renewal unto your body, your mind, and most of all, the gift of discernment and clarity within you. Have a blessed and beautiful night.